Alexander Sterling woke before the sun, the same way he had since the first fortune he ever stole. The mansion was still a cathedral of black marble and glass, perched high above the city he owned, but rarely visited floor-to-ceiling windows framed a skyline that glittered for him alone. The world outside thought of him as a myth, a rumor whispered in banks, boardrooms, and back alleys. But here, inside the cold geometry of his home, Alexander was simply a man who trusted silence more than people. He crossed the polished corridor barefoot, a mug of dark coffee in his hand, his reflection following like a ghost through the glass. Nothing in this house was accidental. Every statue imported from forgotten empires, every painting a reminder that beauty could be conquered and displayed. Wealth to him was not luxury, it was armor. It kept the noise away, the begging, the pretending, the false laughter that surrounded men who called themselves powerful, but would kneel if he lifted a single finger. Downstairs, the staff moved like clockwork. They never spoke his name above a whisper. By 8 o'clock, the mansion would empty, and the day would belong to his company. Sterling International, an empire disguised as an investment firm, sprawling through energy, technology, and politics. From the outside, it was legal. From the inside, it was law. Alexander's driver, Cassian, waited by the elevator. "Cars ready, sir." Alexander nodded once he didn't waste words when silence would do. The ride into the city cut through morning fog, tinted windows turning sunlight into gold and shadow. He read reports, signed digital contracts, and deleted 3 messages from women whose names he didn't remember. They all wanted the same thing, his attention, his signature, his bed, and he had none to spare desire. He'd learned was another kind of trap. The elevator doors to the top floor of Sterling Tower opened at precisely 9. The office stretched like a museum, dark wood, steel, and the faint scent of sandalwood. His employees straightened instinctively when he passed. They called him Mr. Sterling with reverence that bordered on fear. Nia Laurent was the first to appear in his path. She always was. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." Her voice carried perfume and hunger, red lips, diamond earrings, a dress that caught the light like a weapon. Nia was every man's distraction except as she worked in public relations, though she treated the department like a stage. Every time she smiled, it was for an audience. "Morning," he said without slowing. "Are we still meeting at 6 to review the gala proposal?" She pressed, stepping closer than necessary. The scent of her perfume chased him like a demand. He didn't look at her, no, send it to finance. The disappointment behind her lashes lasted only a second before she rearranged it into charm, of course. He moved on, the conversation already forgotten, Nia's type at orbit, but no gravity. They burned bright and vanished fast. What unsettled him more was the quiet that followed, too still for an office that ran on ambition. He turned the corner and saw why. By the coffee station near the glass conference wall stood a young woman he didn't recognize at first. She was pouring coffee into small paper cups, arranging them neatly on a tray. Her hair, dark and heavy with curls, fell over her shoulder as she moved. No jewelry, no heels that announced her, no perfume that lingered. A plain white blouse, a soft pink cardigan, the simplest skirt in the building. And yet, something about her drew the eye, the way a flame draws oxygen.
"Who's that?" he asked his aide. The man glanced over his tablet. "Soraya Daniels, sir. She started in internal support 2 months ago. Rotational assistant. Make sure every department gets what it needs." Alexander watched as Nia swept past Soraya, accidentally bumping her shoulder hard enough to slosh coffee onto her own designer sleeve. Gasps fluttered from the interns nearby. Soraya didn't flinch. She handed Nia a napkin, calm as glass. "Sorry," she said softly, "I'll have that cleaned." "You better," Nia hissed under her breath. "This fabric costs more than your paycheck." The interns laughed, small, nervous noises seeking approval. Alexander didn't speak, but his gaze cut through them like a blade. The laughter died. Nia turned, color draining from her face when she realized he'd seen the exchange. problem?" he asked quietly. "No, sir," Nia stammered, "none at all." He said nothing else, only walked past, but the weight of his silence followed her like a sentence. Soroya looked up then, meeting his eyes for the briefest heartbeat. They were a deep brown, steady, unafraid. She dipped her head respectfully and went back to arranging the tray. By noon, Alexander had forgotten most of the morning. Contracts, meetings, signatures. Except that moment it clung to the edges of his mind, the look, the poise, the stillness that mirrored his own. He told himself it was curiosity, nothing more. A man like him didn't have time to notice the woman who brewed the coffee. But later, when he returned to his mansion and the night pressed against the windows, he found himself replaying it. The calm curve of her mouth, the precise movements of her hands, the way she didn't rush to please or pretend to impress. For the first time in years, the quiet king couldn't quiet his thoughts. And somewhere across the city, Soroya Daniels finished her shift, unaware that the most dangerous man in the world had finally found something he couldn't control.
The morning always began with the hiss of the espresso machine and the scent of roasted beans that clung to Soroya's cardigan long after she clocked out. Most people in the Sterling Tower passed by the coffee station without a word, tossing orders over their shoulders as if caffeine were conjured by magic. Soroya didn't mind. She liked the quiet rhythm. Measure, pour, stir, repeat. It gave her a moment of peace before the building woke up. She balanced 2 trays against her hip and set the first on the marketing table. Compliments were rare here, but efficiency was its own armor. As she turned toward finance, voices rose behind her. The sharp click of Nia Laurent's heels, the perfume that arrived a half-second before she did. "Watch it." Nia snapped when their shoulders brushed, coffee sloshing toward her sleeve. "I'm sorry," Soroya said, instantly reaching for a napkin. She blotted the spill carefully, her voice soft but steady. "I'll take care of the dry cleaning." Nia's eyes narrowed. "Just make sure you do. Some of us wear real silk." A few interns tittered until the air went still. Soroya glanced up and saw why Alexander Sterling stood across the hall, expression unreadable. The laughter died the moment his gaze swept over them. Nia's face paled. She muttered something that sounded like an apology and vanished toward the elevators. Soroya finished wiping the counter and exhaled slowly. She hadn't meant to embarrass anyone, least of all herself. But confrontation never sat easily on her tongue. Still, she wouldn't let anyone treat her like furniture. Her grandmother used to say, "You can be soft and still have edges, child." By noon, she'd restocked sugar packets and typed out the weekly supply report. The office hum surrounded her, keyboards clicking, phones murmuring, ambition buzzing like fluorescent light. When the intercom pinged her name, she nearly spilled a mug. "Miss Daniels," came the receptionist's voice. "Mr. Sterling would like you to bring coffee to the executive floor." Her heart skipped right away. She checked her reflection in the stainless steel panel of the machine. Nothing remarkable. Dark curls pinned loosely at her neck, plain blouse, light gloss, but her hands trembled as she carried the tray to the elevator. The top floor corridor was quieter than any church. Every step echoed. When the assistant waved her toward the glass office, she hesitated at the threshold. Alexander Sterling sat behind the vast black oak desk reading a file. The light from the window caught the sharp line of his jaw and the faint silver at his temples. "Set it there," he said without looking up. "Yes, sir." She placed the tray carefully, aligning the cup handle to the right the way she'd been trained. "Name?" he asked, eyes still on the document. "Soroya Daniels, sir." "Support division." Yes, she folded her hands to keep from fidgeting. He glanced up then, and the weight of that gaze almost stole her breath. For a moment she understood why people said he ruled through silence. It wasn't cruelty, it was precision. "You handled that incident this morning well," he said. "I only did my job, Mr. Sterling."
Most people would have raised their voice. I find it wastes energy. Something flickered in his expression, almost a smile. Good answer. He reached for the cup, and their fingers brushed, nothing more than a spark of contact, but enough to send a flush creeping into her cheeks. She stepped back quickly. "That will be all," he said. She nodded, turned, and escaped into the hallway before her pulse betrayed her. That night, Soroya walked home through the city, her bag heavy with half-finished reports. The skyline burned gold against the dark, and somewhere high above those lights, the richest man alive was still awake. She tried to shake the image of his eyes, the calm authority that filled the room. It was foolish to think of him beyond the bounds of hierarchy, but the mind doesn't obey memos. At her small apartment, she brewed herself another cup of coffee, cheaper beans, weaker brew. She opened her laptop and typed a new document, the updated version of her resume. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat as she filled in her certifications, her degrees, the project she'd managed quietly for others who took the credit. When she finished, she printed it, slid it into a clean folder, and looked at the date. Tomorrow she would hand it to Alexander Sterling himself, not through email, not through HR in person. It wasn't about ambition. She told herself it was about value. But when she lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, she realized value wasn't the only thing driving her. Curiosity was the quiet kind. The kind that makes you wonder what hides behind the eyes of a man who owns everything and shows nothing. And if she'd heard the way Alexander's thoughts turned restlessly in his mansion that same night, she might have realized curiosity can be contagious.
Morning sunlight slid between the towers like a secret. The city looked softer from the bus window, less ruthless. But Soroya knew what waited inside. Sterling International's mirrored glass. She balanced her coffee thermos in the slim folder that held her resume, fingers pressed so tightly against the edge that it left a crease. Today wasn't for courage, it was for clarity. She had spent years polishing other people's proposals, catching their grammar, fixing their numbers, and watching them collect the praise no more. At the security desk, the guard waved her through. She was early enough that the lobby still smelled of floor polish instead of perfume. Elevators whispered upward. In the mirrored panel, her reflection looked steady enough. Cardigan, curls pinned, clear lip balm instead of gloss, no armor except composure. On the 20th floor, the air already buzzed with ambition. Nia's laughter floated from the break room, high and bright, a sound meant to announce territory. Soroya crossed to the reception desk. "I'd like to deliver this to Mr. Sterling," she said, holding out the folder. The receptionist blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he asked for updated reports from support yesterday. Tell him it's from Miss Daniels." Half true, half hope. The woman hesitated, then buzzed the line. After a few seconds, her eyes widened slightly. "He said to send you in." Soroya's heart skipped. She murmured thanks and walked the long corridor toward the glass office that seemed to hang above the city. Alexander Sterling was already standing when she entered, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow. The morning light caught the veins in his forearms, the quiet power of restraint made visible. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." He nodded once, motioning to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." She obeyed. He picked up the folder before she could slide it forward. "A resume," he said, "ambition before breakfast." "I prefer goals to gossip," she answered softly, that earned the faintest curve of his mouth. He read in silence, eyes moving quickly down the page. When he finally looked up, she met his gaze. "You've been working beneath your ability," he said. "I know. You have a degree in strategic management, certifications in project analytics, and fluency in 2 languages, yet you make coffee. I make sure the company runs smoothly," she corrected. "Even small systems matter." He studied her for a long moment, the quiet between them heavy enough to measure. "Why hand this to me directly?" "Because if I sent it through HR, it would disappear under Nia Laurent's inbox," she said. "And because you told me yesterday that I handled myself well, I wanted to prove that wasn't luck." Alexander leaned back, fingertips pressed together. The movement was unhurried, predatory only in its patience. "You're not afraid to speak truth. I'm afraid of wasting it."
He closed the folder and tapped it once against the desk. Your report to me starting Monday. Soroya blinked, sir. Your position is changing. You'll coordinate project logistics and assist with executive correspondence. She caught herself before the word impossible escaped. A promotion. A correction, he said. My office will prepare the papers. You'll sit outside this door, not below it. Her pulse fluttered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. His tone softened but carried an edge that felt like warning. You'll see sides of this company that aren't on any organizational chart. Listen before you speak. Learn before you act. Yes, sir. He watched her rise and Miss Daniels. She paused at the doorway. You'll keep this between us for now. Understanding dawned. He didn't want Nia or the others knowing she was being moved above them. Of course, she said, discretion is easy for me. I've noticed. Their eyes met, just a flicker but enough to heat the space between formality and something more dangerous. She left before the moment could grow teeth. By lunchtime the office hummed with speculation. Nia prowled near the windows, whispering into her phone. Her smile stretched too thin. Soroya kept her head down, filing reports, answering calls, pretending nothing had changed. Yet every time she looked toward the top floor elevator, her chest tightened. When the day finally ended, she rode down alone, her new ID badge burning like a secret in her pocket. That evening, Alexander returned to his mansion. The city's noise died at the gates, replaced by the low hum of classical music and the scent of cedar. He loosened his tie, poured a glass of whiskey, and reopened the folder. The resume was neat, efficient, without exaggeration. No desperate adjectives, no unnecessary sparkle. Just competence, honesty, a quiet mind that understood structure. He thought of Nia's laughter, the perfume that lingered after her, the way she leaned into every conversation. Then he thought of Soroya's calm eyes, her careful movements, the steadiness that never tried to sell itself. Power like noise, but Alexander had always preferred silence. And somewhere between those two, he realized desire had begun to shift. He closed the folder and set it aside. Tomorrow he would see how Soroya handled being close to danger.
Monday arrived wrapped in pale light and nervous calm. The elevator carried Soroya higher than she had ever gone inside. Sterling International. Each floor the digital panel counted was a heartbeat. By the time she reached the executive level, her palms were damp and her throat felt too small for breath. The corridor outside, Alexander Sterling's office, was silent, except for the low hum of the climate system. The carpet swallowed sound. Even her heels seemed reluctant to disturb it. The receptionist smiled politely and pointed to a smaller workstation directly outside the glass doors of the corner office. A sleek nameplate already waited there. S. Daniels, Executive Secretary. Soroya ran a finger over the letters. The gesture felt like touching proof. Her new workspace was all angles and discipline. Steel desk, hidden drawers, a single phone that could reach every corner of the building. Through the transparent wall, she could see Alexander at his desk, jacket on, focus absolute. He didn't look up when she entered, and she took the hint. Quiet efficiency was the language he respected. She turned on the terminal, logged into her new credentials, and the flood began. Meeting schedules, encrypted memos, project summaries worth more than small countries. By 10 a.m., she had already coordinated 3 department heads and translated a proposal for a European client. It felt good, like fitting into the right shape after years of folding herself smaller. The elevator pinged. Nia Laurent stepped out in a scarlet suit, sunglasses still on though the lighting was gentle and artificial. She walked with the sway of someone used to being noticed. When she saw Soroya seated at the executive desk, the smile froze mid-curve. "What are you doing up here?" Nia asked, voice sugar-coated venom. "Working," Soroya said evenly, not looking away from the screen. "For who?" Before Soroya could answer, Alexander's door opened. His presence filled the space the way thunder fills air after lightning. "Miss Laurent," he said coolly, "you're early for your meeting. Wait in conference B." Nia blinked, thrown off balance. "Of course, Mr. Sterling." She turned sharply, heels biting into the carpet as she vanished around the corner. Alexander's eyes shifted to Soroya. "How's your first morning?" Busy, she said. I prefer it that way. Good. His tone made the single word sound like approval. I want every outgoing report routed through you before it hits my desk, and cancel Thursday's dinner with the trade board. She jotted notes, fingers moving fast. Done. He lingered another second, as if about to add something, then simply nodded and returned to his office. The door clicked shut. Soroya exhaled the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. By afternoon, the rhythm of the executive floor became familiar. The shuffle of staff arriving with files, the controlled chaos of wealth in motion. Alexander dictated correspondence with precision, never wasting a syllable. Yet sometimes, when he paused to review a line, his gaze drifted through the glass wall toward her. The look was brief, unreadable, but enough to send a warmth curling low in her stomach. When lunch came, most employees scattered to the cafe Soroya stayed. Preferring the quiet, she ate a sandwich at her desk, scrolling through project data. That was when Nia returned.
No sunglasses now, just eyes sharpened to blades. So it's true. Nia said softly, "You've been promoted." Soroya kept her tone calm. "Mr. Sterling thought my skills would be useful here." "Useful," Nia repeated, a laugh without humor. "We'll see how long that lasts." Soroya met her stare evenly. "As long as I keep doing my job." Nia's lips curved, but her gaze flicked toward Alexander's door. "Be careful, coffee girl. Men like him don't notice women like you unless they want something." Soroya set her sandwich down. "And maybe women like me don't need to be noticed to matter." For a heartbeat, Nia looked as if she might strike back, but the door behind them opened again. Alexander stepped out, files in hand. His expression was unreadable, but his next words drew a thin line in the air. "Miss Laurent," he said, "your meeting started 5 minutes ago." Nia blanched. "Yes, sir." She disappeared again, the door swinging shut behind her. Alexander placed the folders on Soroya's desk. "Ignore her." "I intend to," Soroya said, straightening the papers. "Would you like these sent to finance now?" He watched her for a second longer than necessary. "Yes." Their fingers brushed again when she reached for the files. Electricity. She looked up, startled. He didn't move, but something in his eyes softened, a flicker of something almost human beneath the discipline. "Good work, Miss Daniels," he said quietly. "Thank you, sir." He turned away before the silence grew dangerous. When the day ended, the sky beyond the tower was painted in gold and smoke. Soroya shut down her terminal, gathered her things, and looked once more at the nameplate on her desk. For the first time in years, she felt the strange calm of belonging. Across the glass, Alexander watched her slip her cardigan over her shoulders. The office emptied around him, yet he didn't move. She had brought a kind of order he hadn't known he missed. A steady rhythm to balance the chaos he commanded. He told himself it was respect, nothing more. But when the elevator doors closed behind her, the silence she left behind felt too loud. By Wednesday, Soroya had learned the rhythm of Alexander Sterling's empire. Meetings began exactly on the half hour, never a minute before or after. Every document had to be reviewed twice. Once for accuracy, once for tone. When he dictated, his voice stayed calm even when the subject was chaos. He didn't raise it. He simply narrowed it, and people listened. She liked the order of it. The days moved like a clock, each task a steady tick. Yet beneath the polish, she could feel the hum of something volatile, a pressure waiting to escape the seams. It wasn't only the company, it was him. Alexander had grown quieter since her promotion, but it wasn't distance, it was observation. Sometimes she caught him studying her through the glass, as though measuring a pattern only he could see. When she met his eyes, he always looked away first, returning to his screen. By noon, the office was busy with preparations for the annual Investors Gala. Soroya typed an itinerary while Nia walked by in another designer suit. The sound of her heels sharp enough to cut marble. "Still fetching coffee?" Nia murmured. Soroya didn't look up. "Still wasting time?" Nia stopped. "You'll find out soon enough what happens to people who forget their place. Maybe you should worry about your own."
Alexander's door opened, freezing the air between them. Miss Laurent, the logistic report. Nia blinked, color rushing to her face. Yes, Mr. Sterling. She fled down the corridor. He turned his attention to Soroya. You handled the morning dispatch? Yes, sir, everything's confirmed. Good, come in. She followed him into the office, the door clicking shut behind her. The room smelled of leather, paper, and his cologne, warm cedar laid with something darker. He moved around the desk, passing her the printed contracts. Their fingers touched briefly, and she felt it again, that tiny electric pulse. Alexander leaned against the edge of the desk, crossing his arms. You've been here a week in this role. How do you find it? It suits me, she said. I like precision. That's rare. He studied her for a long moment. Most people chase visibility, you don't. I prefer results to attention. His mouth curved slightly. You're consistent, Miss Daniels. I try to be. Try less, you already are. The compliment came out quietly, unexpected. She met his gaze and found it steadier than she'd ever seen. Gray and unreadable, yet focused entirely on her. A knock broke the moment. The assistant entered, dropped a folder, and left again. Alexander didn't move, just looked towards the closed door. You can leave it locked, Miss Daniels. We won't be interrupted for a while. Soroya hesitated, but the weight of his tone made her obey. She turned the latch. The faint metallic click sounded louder than it should have. He motioned toward the table beside the window where a layout of the gala floor plan was spread out. You've handled events before, haven't you?
Yes. She stepped closer. Then help me decide. I can't stand the clutter they've planned. Together they bent over the diagram. She leaned in, tracing a line with her fingertip. His hand came to rest near hers, close enough that her skin registered the heat when she glanced up. He was already looking at her. Would you move the VIP section here? She asked, her voice lower than she meant it to be. Possibly. His eyes didn't leave hers. It depends who counts as important. Her lips parted, uncertain whether it was a question or a test. I suppose that's your decision. Not always. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city glowed through the window behind him. Steel and gold and distance. In the reflection, she saw them both, her standing small beside him, his silhouette drawn like a blade. You're distracted, he said softly. No. She straightened, but her pulse betrayed her. He stepped back, giving her space, but his voice carried the faintest trace of amusement. You're human. That's allowed. I'm professional. I never said you weren't. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with what neither dared name. Finally, Alexander walked to the bar cart in the corner and poured water into a glass. He handed it to her. You forget to drink when you work. Do you always notice that much? Only what I can't ignore. Her fingers brushed the rim of the glass. Instead of taking it, their knuckles touched, and she saw a flicker of something dangerous cross his expression. Interest restrained by discipline. He set the glass down and turned away first, the faintest sigh in his breath. Meeting in 10, he said, bring the layout. Yes, Mr. Sterling. She gathered the papers, keeping her composure while her skin burned. When she left, his reflection in the window watched her go. That evening, after the building emptied, Soroya stayed to finalize documents. The only light came from her desk lamp, a golden pool in the dark. The elevator chimed softly. Footsteps approached. Alexander peered at her doorway, tie loosened, the mask of the day half gone. You should have gone home an hour ago. I wanted to finish this. He stepped closer, the sound of his shoes low on the carpet. You'll ruin your eyes. I've ruined worse things. He almost smiled. You surprise me daily. Good, I'd hate to be predictable. Alexander leaned one hand on the edge of her desk. The air shifted, warmer, charged. You work like someone who's never been allowed to rest. Rest is expensive. I could afford to give you some. She looked up. And what would you ask in return?
The corner of his mouth twitched. Only your time, nothing more. Time, she repeated. That's what men like you never give freely. He straightened, studying her face, the steady rise and fall of her breath. For a moment it felt like he might say something reckless. Instead, his voice lowered, calm but edged with heat. Be careful, Miss Daniels, curiosity gets addictive. So does control, she replied before she could stop herself. The silence that followed felt alive. He exhaled slowly, eyes tracing the line of her jaw to the pulse at her throat. Then he took a step back, reining himself in with visible effort. "Go home," he said, the words quieter than his normal command. "Yes, sir." When she passed him on her way to the elevator, he didn't move aside immediately. For an instant, her shoulder brushed his chest, heat sparking through the thin barrier of professionalism. The doors closed, leaving her breathless and him staring at the faint reflection of her in the steel. He stayed like that for a long time, hands braced against the glass, the quiet king in a war with his own composure.
The next morning, the city was gray with rain. Clouds pressed low against the towers, turning the skyline into smoke. From his office, Alexander watched droplets gather on the glass until the view dissolved into a blurred mirror of himself. The quiet king looked back, controlled, immaculate, unbothered, and he knew it was a lie. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the image returned. Saroya standing beneath the low light of her desk lamp, hair catching gold, voice calm while his pulse betrayed him. It had been years since a woman's quiet had managed to reach him through the noise of money and violence. Cassian entered without knocking. "Your morning schedule, sir." Alexander took the folder and the press leak. Contained someone in marketing. Nia Laron oversaw the team. Alexander's eyes flicked up. "Then Nia will explain to me why containment was needed in the first place." Cassian nodded and disappeared. The office door opened again moments later. No knock this time either. But it wasn't Cassian. Saroya slipped in, umbrella folded, rain glittering in her curls. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." He gestured to the towel folded near the bar. "You're soaked." Only from the walk between the taxi and the door. She smiled faintly. "I didn't want to be late." He took the towel and handed it to her, watching the way she pressed it lightly to her hair. "You could have called the driver assigned to executives." "I'm not used to that kind of privilege." "Get used to it," he said, then softened the edge of his voice. "You've earned it." She blinked, caught off guard by the warmth in his tone. "Thank you, sir." He turned away first, opening the day's report. "We have a meeting with the Singapore branch at 9, the gala contractors at 11, and I need you to proof the investor speech before lunch." "Yes, sir." She set her notebook down, already reaching for a pen. He meant to focus on the document, but the faint sound of her writing, steady, measured, pulled at him. The rain softened to mist against the glass, the city breathing in slow rhythm with her quiet movements. By 10, the Singapore call was underway. Saroya stood near the conference table, handing him translated notes when needed. The board members' faces flickered across screens like ghosts. Alexander's voice remained even, decisive, every syllable commanding obedience. Yet when she passed behind him to refill his glass, his hand brushed hers, accidental, brief, but enough to send awareness racing through both. When the meeting ended, he dismissed the room with a curt nod. "Leave us," he said to the assistants. Only Saroya remained. "You manage pressure well," he said once the door closed. "It's easier when the person leading never falters," she replied. A faint smile touched his lips. "You think I never falter?" "I haven't seen it." He studied her a moment, gray eyes unreadable. "That's because I built this company to hide the places that do." Maybe that's why it runs so perfectly. Perfect systems break more easily than flawed ones, he said. Too much tension in the glass, and it shatters. Their eyes met, something unspoken pulsing between words. Then the outer door opened sharply. "Mr. Sterling." Nia Laurent's voice was honey poured over knives. "You asked to see me about the marketing incident." Alexander's expression cooled in an instant. "Yes, close the door." She did, though her gaze darted briefly to Saroya. "I didn't realize you had company. Miss Daniels is my secretary. She stays." Nia's jaw tightened, of course. Alexander folded his arms. "You were responsible for overseeing confidentiality on the campaign," explained the breach. "It was handled," Nia said quickly. "A contractor error. I've already replaced the file." "And yet Cassian had to inform me instead of you." His tone dropped lower. "You're paid to foresee mistakes, not to clean them up afterward."
Her cheeks colored. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. He dismissed her with a nod. Nia turned to leave, but paused beside Soroya's desk on her way out. Congratulations again on your new position, she murmured. I hope it's worth the trouble. Soroya didn't respond. The door closed behind Nia with a soft, poisonous click. Alexander's gaze followed it. Don't engage her. I wasn't planning to, Soroya said. Good. He returned to his desk, but the set of his shoulders told her he was angry. Controlled, yes, but burning under the calm. You could fire her, Soroya said quietly. I could, he admitted, but I prefer to know where my enemies stand. She hesitated, then added softly, that sounds lonely. He looked up at her, the mask slipping just slightly. It is. Evening came before either realized the hour. The storm had cleared, leaving the windows streaked with the city's lights. Soroya finished sorting the last of the reports and stretched her neck, unaware that Alexander was watching her from behind his monitor. You should leave soon, he said. I will just finishing this section. You said that 2 hours ago. She smiled without turning. I don't like unfinished things. He stood and crossed to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of water. Then finish this day properly. When she turned, he handed her a glass, their fingers brushing again. The contact lingered, long enough for her pulse to stumble, long enough for him to see it. You've been working for me less than a month, he said quietly, and already this floor runs smoother. That's what you hired me for. That's not all I notice.
Her breath caught the room, felt smaller. Suddenly, the night outside pushing against the glass while the space between them grew hot with everything unsaid. Mr. Sterling, she began, but he shook his head. Alexander, he corrected, voice low. You weren't close enough to use my name. She looked up, the sound of it in his mouth unsteadying her. Alexander. He exhaled, the single word changing the air between them. His hand brushed a curl from her shoulder. Not a claim, just the lightest touch, as if testing whether it was real. You should go home, he said finally, though his tone betrayed no conviction. I should, she agreed, still standing too close. Neither moved outside. Lightning flared somewhere far away, painting their reflections silver on the glass. Tomorrow, he said, stepping back 8 sharp. Yes, Alexander. Her voice was barely above a whisper. When she left, the faint scent of her lingered, coffee and rain and quiet defiance. Alexander stood alone again, hands in his pockets, staring at the spot where she'd been. Control had always been his greatest weapon. Now it felt like his only weakness.